welcome to our Frames and Apertures class. Now, unfortunately, when I did this live, it did go a little bit wrong. So let me just see if I can kind of do a little bit of a do-over. So I have a piece of card where I've stamped my image, and I can kind of give you a little bit of a glimpse ahead of what we're going to be doing. So what we're looking at is how we can take a stamped image and create an aperture with it, or a frame. So if I take this one out of here, here's one that I made earlier. And all I did was, need more oxygen, use a little bit of a drawing template. So this drawing template is one that I've created on the ScanNCut, well, not on the ScanNCut, but it's cut by the ScanNCut. So to be able to do things like this, we need to be able to work in CanvasWorkspace. But to make life easier for you, I've actually done this as a file that you can purchase and download. Or I may even be really nice. Let's take it from the beginning, and I'll show you how we kind of went about things. So I worked with coloured card. The important thing is that you're working with smooth coloured card. It doesn't overly matter what colour card we go for. So let me find another sheet and I'll be back. Right, so what I'm going to do is I've got some smooth card, and you want to keep texture to a minimum for this technique to work, because you need a good stamped image. So let me pull out my magnets, and I'm just going to attach my card into my stamp platform. Now I have got an old cutting mat here, but it's not very sticky anymore, to be honest. So I'm going to take that out and just use the platform as intended. Stick a magnet there, and let's get some stamps. So what we want is some floral stamps, preferably without everything falling on the floor. So my bigger image is a Stamps by Me image with the lily. So I'll use that one as is. So I will talk briefly about what I did with that on the live to make that work. But for the time being, let's focus on our roses. So these are by Marian Designs. It's called Colourful Silhouettes, and it's roses. Now, I'm going to get nice and inky with these because I hadn't even had a chance to clean my platform. So it's still a bit mucky. So I'm literally coming straight off the back of this live to get everything recorded and finished. So I'm going to pull off this one. Let's put that one there-ish. And this one. So I'll tend to put my bigger design at the bottom, so a bit like a sense of gravity, I guess. So ink that up well. And it may take a couple of impressions, particularly if your stamps are a bit newer. Okay. It's not too bad, but I want to kind of get a really... Actually, let's go with it like that, just because the card looks like it might have moved. And I don't want to risk a double impression. So it's close enough. Now, before I do anything else, let me just introduce my pens. So I'm working with some coloured fine liners, just to kind of fill in the gaps. So this stamp here does have a little gap in its petal just there. I'm using a couple of shades just to try and match what I stamped with. There we go. And I'm going to do the same just on this petal here. It just looks like it's a little bit too fine. And the more we can kind of remove confusion for our machine, the better. I'm going to get my little tree leaf branch. On the other one, I had it go the other way, I think. But I'm thinking, let's go that away. And I want it so that my stamp overlaps the coloured stamping so that we know that we've got joined up section. Okay, again, ink that up nicely. Press that down. There we go. Okay. So then what I did was I created a frame. So let's remove this out of my stamp platform. And I'm going to chuck a magnet on the floor. That is not a good idea, especially when you have a metal chair. So let's pop that there. Card onto the desk. And we can take one of our shapes now in the live work circle, because that was nice and easy to do. But if I'm going to record this, let's go for something a bit different. So I've got a hexagon style one here, and we can use that. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to choose which of our lines we're going to use for our frame. Now, I'm going to start off with the blue, I think, because I can always go back over with the purple after, just to tone it in a bit. And with our frame, we can either use elements in our design, so for instance the stem, to kind of create a shaped part of our aperture, or we can draw inside that. So I'm going to go inside that on this one. And let's just take that there. Now, in my drawing guide, I have some little gaps, and we're going to need to fill those in. So I'm going to just rotate my template, and let me just get that like so. So you should have something that looks like that. Now I'm going to go over with the purple to tone this in. I don't mind doing it freehand. If you want to get an absolute perfect aperture though, you might want to use a ruler. Okay, and there we go. So you have something like that. Now I'm going to line up my guide again, and we're going to choose our outer frame. So by lining this up, we know that we're going to keep it more or less centered. And given the stem is there, I might use that as my outer line on this side of the frame. So let's go for this one here. So it's really fun creating this template to work with. It taught me a lot about CanvasWorkspace as well. So usually with CanvasWorkspace, and I'll say this time and again in the book and things, it can't handle shapes that don't overlap when you're welding. But it did something very weird with this file when I tried to weld it. Very weird. And it ended up having like the outer ring was right, but then the next circle was just a solid circle. Really weird, even though everything had been subtracted properly. And okay, so we've got our outer edge here, and then we're going to let our design form the outer edge on this side. So I'm going to go back in on purple and draw it over the top. And you want to make sure that all your corners meet as well. Otherwise it can throw up issues. Okay, and there we go. So you should have something that looks like that. So if I bring my other one back in, and I can talk a little bit about what I did for my lily by comparison. So, lily, I've just spotted it's got a little bit nick out the top, but that's not going to matter. With our lily, we didn't get perfect stamped image straight away. So I had to fill in on the tip of this petal here, and I'm just going to add a bit of purple to that actually, just to tone that in a bit. And then we had to go around and just check that any areas of stamps that might have missed get filled in, so that it can pull up the detail when we come to actually cut it out. Again, if you want to, we can go over our guideline here. And basically what we're doing is we're trying to make it as easy as possible for our machine to see what we intend. So with this, I intend to cut out this center section. As a whole. So if you wanted to, you could just go no, no, no and hatch through, but we don't need to. I want to check in here that all these little sections are filled in. So you can see where I did that one there, but just go over it and just make sure, because if there's even the slightest little gap, that's when we start to have issues. So I'm just going to make this line here a little bit stronger. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Canvas to do this particular shape, and I'm going to use the machine to do this one, because I want you to see the difference between the two. Now, Canvas is good for doing complex things where, you know, there's an element of you're not able to rely on auto tracing. So even with the image tracing function in Canvas, even with the enhanced image tracing function in Canvas, you may not always get the results that you want. So you've got to be confident that you can fix the issues that you have. Now, one of the things I did mention on the live, and I just realised I haven't mentioned, is I'm intending to put this on a 6x6 card blank. So if I take my circle template, line this up, because I know I use the largest circle, like so, you can see it's going to crop around here anyway, so hence I'm not too fussed about this bit up here. We can sort that out. So without too much further ado, let's move over to the ScanNCut, and we can start with our little pink frame here, and then we can go on from there. Okay, So moving to the ScanNCut, what we're going to do is we're going to do our direct cut. So direct cut is whenever you are cutting directly out of the material that you have on the mat. So no scanning mat required for this. In fact, it will not work for obvious reasons. So just have your media loaded onto your normal cutting mat. Make sure that you have good adhesion and all the rest of it, because it is going to be feeding through the machine. So we're going to go and let the machine do this first one. We're using 12 by 6. We're currently on black and white. We'll see how it goes. Start. We're going to go OK, and we're going to bring that frame in. So we want it literally focusing on that center aperture. And we're going to go preview. Now, what you should have is a trace around that center aperture. If you are not getting that, let's have a look, see what we can do to help it out. So let's try going darker. Okay, nothing there. Lighter. If we go all the way to light, sometimes you can find that what it does is it's going to go and pick up every bit of texture on the surface rather than the actual images itself. So it's very rare that completely light will work unless you're working with a really dark card with a really dark outline that somehow it manages to pick up. So we can see that we have lots of little bits around here rather than a nice clean line, which is what we want to see. So okay, we'll go home to reset and let's try, oh no, not that one. We'll try direct cut again with on the machine with the color. Okay, so at the moment it's brilliant sunshine outside, so I have the curtain shut behind the machine to try and cut out some of the light. This can impact on the scan that you get, so if you can't get a good scan at a certain time of day, do try it again at a different time of day, and you might just find that is a perfect time for scanning with the position that you have of your machine. Okay, so let's see how this goes. So we've got our aperture there. Ignore object size. Oh, not that far. So I'm going to reduce it down until I get the aperture I want. Okay, would have expected it to pop up by now. There we go. So that's the shape that we want to cut out. So I'm going to go OK. OK. And we have our aperture ready to cut. So I'm going to go OK again. If you want to do an offset, you can do, but for this one, I'm just going to let it cut as is. Go to cut. I have the black auto blade in. It's currently on 5, but there's nothing too tricky for it to handle, so it's fine to go and do that at 5. Okay, so center aperture done. And at this point, just take a hook tool and just check that it is actually cut. So long as it is actually cut, we can go OK and remove that center from our shape. So now we're going to go home to reset. OK. Scan, direct cut, machine, start, and it's going to rescan it. Now this time I'm not going to bother resizing that frame because I don't need to, unless it's picked up something over here that's a tiny bit of dirt, or maybe you've had a cut section out of the card already, then you don't need to worry. I'm going to go OK. And there we go. It's traced around the outside of our hexagon so that we can go OK, OK, cut. Now this time we've got something that's a little bit more fiddly, so we could reduce our speed down, but yeah, let's go just a fraction, down to 3. So it's not that the actual shape itself is detailed. Oh, hang on. Now my box is gonna fail. Let's just... So while that's cut, I'm gonna just finish there. Or I would if it was paying attention to me. Oh well. Let me just see what this is doing. Little mouse, come here. There we go. Okay, let's finish. Okay, so what we have is we have our cut out frame. Now it has got some really fine details just here. So what I am going to say is whenever we have fine details, flip over your mat and just work from that detail towards your solid object. Never the other way around, otherwise you end up pulling off your layers and things. So we can cut really fragile things without having to drop the speed too much. It's when we're starting to go intricate that your speed wants to go down. So you can see that actually that outside edge is pretty simple. So let me pop that over there, and onto my mat I'm going to pop my lily. So with this there is a slight difference to how I'm going to work. I'm going to first of all bring it down 1 inch from the top. The reason being, this part of the image here is quite close to the edge. Next thing is that this is actually larger than 6 inches from here to here, so we can't use our 12 by 6 size anymore. So it is going to be a case of open the window so that we can actually feed that through. Okay, so just very quickly do any final checks that you think, excuse me, that you might need to do for your particular circumstances. So like today is a really bright sunny day, some might want to compensate for that with making my lines darker or shading in some way the window. It's a little bit trickier for me. As a rule of thumb, I always tell people when they're setting up their craft rooms, particularly with the ScanNCut, don't put it by a window. It's just where it fits in this room. It doesn't fit anywhere else. So yeah, it's one of those. We'll get sorted eventually. Okay, so with the mat back loaded in, we've reset the machine. We're going to go to scan, direct cut. Now, this time I said I was going to use Canvas to show you the difference. So we're going to press that right hand button, and this time it's going to do that scan at a 12 by 12 because that's what I used last when I scanned to Canvas. So let's take the curtain out the way and we'll let that feed through. draw that curtain back to. So it is going to transfer to canvas. You're going to tap on OK. It's then going to come up with some instructions for you. By and large, I just ignore whatever it says. It's just there so that you have the button for when you want to pull what you do on canvas back down to your machine. So at this point, do not unload the mat. And instead, I'm going to hop over to my screen. And let's make this a little bit bigger. I know what's happened here. Let me move these out of the way. So I have lots of pop-ups that are for my recording software. And if the screen glitches, they end up on my screen with canvas, which we don't want. So just so that you can see nice and clearly. Come on. Just thinking about it. I'll get there eventually. Right. So here I have my drawing guide that I was showing you earlier. And I already have that saved, so I know I can just go to new. Start a fresh document. And we have two ways of accessing scans that we have done through our machine. So if you want to do this entirely using the pen tool, then go ahead. And we're going to go to File, Import from your cutting machine, Scanned Image, and that should pull through your scan. If, however, you want to have a look at image tracing, we're going to go to the image trace button, which is the funny one that looks like a spade, as in the card deck, not the gardening kind. So when we click on that, it's going to give us two options. We can use an image that we've downloaded in our computer or that we've made, or we can go to an image scan by your machine. I will be honest and say this is the one that probably gets used the least for me. So I like to create lots of files in my computer. We're using a variety of image editing software that I can then cut out. Okay, so I've brought in my scan. We can see that it's 1 inch down at the top. And it's done a wonderful job of tracing everything except what you want it to trace. So, in much the same way as what we do on the machine, we're going to move in our frame. Now, what you don't want to do is move it past the point of your image at this point. So we're going to go OK, and we're going to go Preview. And it's going to retrace that image on the page. Now, at the moment, it's looking at the outer edge only. And what it means by that is the darkest areas of that image. That's what it's going to assume is that kind of focal point that you want to do. We can then do trace areas by colour or the enhanced image tracing. Now, enhanced image tracing is interesting because it gives us a much more direct route for actually doing our trace. But it does take quite a bit of computational power. So you're going to notice my computer, as I'm recording, is going to struggle a little bit. Now, you can see here that it's gone, oh, right, okay, I can do all this here, around there, that's my outside edge. And it's like, yes, but no, I don't want you to look at that entire outside edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and make it kind of relearn where this boundary is. So I'm just going to go like that and preview. Now, this will work in one of two ways. This will either do what you want it to do, or it will do the complete opposite. And let's see how it does. Okay, So what it's done is it's divided it into two shapes instead of one. Not really what I wanted it to do. But to get rid of anything, we can just go and raise back over the top. So you can see that because we just did it as a line, it wasn't really paying attention. So I'm just going to make sure that all that line's taken out. Let's zoom in a bit better so we can see a little closer. And I'm just going to scroll with my mouse wheel to kind of move around. Now that I've taken that out, I'm going to preview just to reset it back to where it was. And again, it can take a little bit of time. Just be patient with it. What I should say is the simpler the design, the quicker it will work. Now, at the moment it's on trace outer edge only. If we were to put it on to trace everything, at the moment the trouble is because we're not working with a coloured image, we're working with an outline, it would pull up every single bit of petal. Now this is why I always say when people say, oh, what order should I do things in? I always say colour first, then cut. Always, so that you have that kind of ability to kind of stretch what you do. But for this one, we're going to have to be a little bit cleverer. So I want to take out all these petals. Now, what I'm hoping this is going to be clever enough to do, I'm going to leave that one in because it's just a bit awkward to draw around. Whoop. That's okay. If you do mess up, don't worry. We are going to be able to fix that. I'm going to go draw around here like so. Let's draw around here. Join that up. Let's go to our erase tool. Take this line out over here. So remember how I said that lines need to join up? That's just as true here. It's not the easiest to do with this mouse, to be honest. If you have a graphics tablet, perfect. Okay, so there's this little bit up here that needs fixing where I went wee. That's okay. We're going to go up there, down there, up here. Okay, let's try again. So now we can see that we've started to get some of the detail that we want, but not all of the detail that we want. So let's think which is going to be the easiest way to do this. I think I'm going to go back to trace area by colour. And let's zoom out. Just because I want that frame to kind of focus here. We can always do the little bits a different way using that enhanced image tracing. But I just want to get the most of this in here. Preview. It's still not liking it. Okay. So you can see the background outline, it just can't see the... How weird. Okay. So because we've done our frame, we've now applied that to our enhanced image tracing. Let's zoom in. So in theory, we should now be able to do this a little bit easier, because I don't want this bit here. So let's see if we do that. That takes that out. The good news is if it puts bits in, like these bits here, we can delete those out. So I'm always focused on the actual shape that I want rather than the ones that I don't want. I want to take out this section here. And try that. Okay. So far so good. Okay, so it's done this bit right. I haven't quite done that right. So let's just take that out. Make that bigger. Okay. Let's just go. Okay, that's not too bad. So let's say, for instance, you want to tidy this up. For starters, we can do smoothing. So I'm going to go quite high and see if that makes a nice difference. Because at the very least, that should smooth out our circle. Like so. Now, interestingly, it looks like it's taken out this bit here. So let's just go and see if we can sort this out. Preview. Okay, so it's got some of it sorted. Preview again. So each time we're drawing, we have that option to make it redo that preview. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go OK. and it is going to paste a copy onto our mat. So we can see straight away that we have some images, or some shapes I should say, that we don't want. So we need to get rid of those straight away. So let's zoom in. So we can do that with Command and Plus on our keyboard. Or if you're on a PC, it's probably Control and Plus, but it's usually whichever command for zoom in you usually use. Okay, so we have a few little glitches here and there that you just want to kind of tweak. So let's double click so that we can get our nodes, and we can see straight away that there's so many nodes that we just don't need. So rather than trying to move lots of little nodes, what we can do is actually start with a fresh path. So let's just click and drag. The good news is that actually this image is actually quite forgiving for a bit of tracing. So just take that down there. Okay, I'm going to take that back to there. Now when we select the two, right, first of all I'm going to take the shape out of this group. The reason being, if you want to do a calculation, you don't want one there in a group. And if we then do 4 to subtract, so it's Command and 4 on a Mac, and probably Control and 4 on a PC. We can see that then we can take away this section here, and we've got, lots of our main details then corrected. So we can go through and do that really quickly. So if we use the P button, we can call that path up without having to go to my menu. And I'm just going to use it a bit like a pair of scissors. I'm just kind of chopping into it, press and hold Shift to select the original shape, and then Command and 4 is going to chop it away. If we want to have it so that it then welds it, so again, select the 2, and Command and 1 is going to weld. So there we go. And like I said, it's a nice, easy image, this, to just put some nice curves into it. Always close your shape, and then you know that you'll be able to weld it or subtract it. It's a bit weird, this one, because you're working with an aperture, you have to kind of reverse your thinking. And even me is struggling to do that today. So we've now got a leaf. We need to sort this out here, so we're going to be welding a new shape there. So a bit of a curve there. Here. Got a curve there. Go there. Join it back. Select the 2, and we're going to weld. And if you want to do like tweaks and stuff for these shapes you're doing, you can do that. Absolutely. So just going to tidy this up here. Now what you can't do is try and do a weld and a subtract at the same time. So you are literally working with one or the other. So for instance, you couldn't weld this bit here but subtract this bit that we need to do just here in one pass. You've got kind of separate it out. Now, if your nodes are too close, you're going to find that it tries to do an open path instead. So just zoom in a bit, go back to your path tool, and just try and stop it snapping. So let's go there. And you're going to find that it's going to want to snap to other nodes in other shapes as well, which most times is really helpful, but sometimes it can just be a little bit of a pain. So let me do that because I want to do. Right. There we go. Sort that out. There. So let's go. So this is going to be a subtract section because we want to take it out. That's there. And subtract. And then we've got a bit here that just needs a little bit tidying up. So by all means we can do that there. And if you want to take out nodes, you can do, just to try and make it a little less complicated. So move that there. And I'll just use the pen tool just to fix that bit there. Okay, so you work around the rest of that shape until you are happy with that particular path that you want to cut. So now what we can do is we can actually go in and do these little sections if you want to. Now this is big if you want to. If you want to just cut these ones round by the circle, then you can do. So in the original live, I was saying about how you don't have to do all of that circle if you don't want to. Just little bits will give you the same impression. So if you want to go, let's say, round here. Now, I do find it easier in Canvas to just work with symmetrical nodes. It's kind of what it defaults to. So that means that the handles follow through in an equal amount. So I tend to use a curved node in the middle of a shape rather than at the end. So in the curve, I'll use a curved node in the middle, but both the endpoints are just a straight click rather than click and a drag. And if you want to do some in the center, particularly with larger shapes like this one here, just to give it a kind of consistent look, we can do. So just tweak that there, back around here, and in there. Now, if you don't want to have all these little bits in the section here, you could actually do this a little bit of a different way. So you could actually just stamp your lily, for instance, in this case, trace that, but rather than cutting that lily out, you can use that traced image to actually subtract from a circle. So just skip the drawing of that aperture altogether. But I wanted to show a practical way that you can actually work with an image, because I know it can feel really kind of dissociative to work entirely through a computer, and a lot of crafters prefer the hands-on approach to actually kind of be able to move the circle around and just go, well, that's the size I want it to kind of look like that, and go from there. So I think sometimes with Canvas it can feel a bit almost clinical as a method. So don't be afraid to kind of mix it up. Use the drawn lines. Use your guides, your stencils you already have. You know, it's a given. We're crafters. We want to have things to hand. So whether that is, you know, punches, dies, there is nothing you can't use in some way or form alongside your ScanNCut. So, and I don't mean necessarily outright copying the design. Not an ideal way to go about it. But there's so much more that we can do beyond that. So let's just weld that. See, for some reason it does not want to weld this shape today. But okay, let's discuss this actually. What is it having a gripe and a moan with? And what it's actually having a gripe and a moan with is because I'm trying to weld two lines that look like they overlap. And it's thinking I am being an idiot. Because what it doesn't take into consideration is this bit here that I've altered. So it's thinking, hang on, no, you're trying to do something wrong. And it's not that I'm trying to do something wrong. It's that it's trying to be too clever for its own good. So we can fix it most times. I'm just going to add in a point here and here, and hopefully occasionally it'll behave. No, it's just, it does not like that line there. But that line there is where I want it. So this is going to look really counterintuitive. And I apologise for probably confusing the heck out of everyone now. I'm going to take this lovely shape that I did. I'm going to highlight the bit that's wrong. Dead wrong. The two. And subtract it out of the way. Because I think it's useful that you learn how you fix the sometimes quirky and random nature of shapes that you get. So now what I'm going to do is just make sure that I don't try and follow that. And then when I weld, it's still going to have an issue. Like, what on earth is wrong with this shape? So I'm just going to go to the node view on here and just check it's still closed, because we can see that it's closed because that little closed icon is blue. This shape here, if I go onto the nodes, it's going to say that it's closed. And it's just getting pedantic about node placement. And the trouble is, it's on such a tiny, tiny part. It's actually really daft. And it's just because we've got two nodes there and there, and it can't work out which one it should keep. Basically, it's what it's having an issue with. So, yeah, let's delete that out. But even though I've got a beautiful line that is exactly where I want it to go, it's not going to let me. So let's show you how we fix it. So I'm going to take this point here. I'm going to make it a curve. So curve at the top. And let's take this handle here. Going to fix that there. Now you can see that curve only affects that active line. So you then have the next trick of getting to the node on this bit here. Now, it is not the easiest, and I wish that there's like a navigation button
that would make life a little bit easier to get around the nodes. But there again, unfortunately, most design software doesn't have that feature. You know, if Adobe or Affinity are listening, you could put that in too for me, you know. Just when you're working up close, sometimes it's just a nightmare, particularly in intricate little shapes. Which, let's face it, when you're working in Illustrator, Designer, chances are you're working with these fine illustrations. Just be able to just cycle through. There you go, Marian Winch done for the day. So, we now have our shape that is done and dusted. One last thing to do, and that is to frame our aperture. Okay, so I'm going to zoom out, and I'm going to go to basic shapes. I'm going to grab a square. It's going to pop it in the top left. And let's go to properties. I always get the wrong one. Edit. So I'm currently in millimeters, typical. So what we can do is I'm just going to change unit to inches. It's going to moan at me because I'm clicked in the dimension box. Let's just click off that a second. Inches. Click on the square, and now a 6-inch card is never 6 inches. It's usually like 5.75. So I'm going to go to 5.5. Let's see how that fits. That's not bad actually. I quite like that. Just there. And we can go and cut that out. So how do we do that? So we've already sent wirelessly to Canvas, and so we need to send wirelessly back. It's not going to export the image. That is fine. Don't want it to. And it can go across. And it will say, sent to the machine. We go back to our machine, and it's going to have gone off to sleep because these new energy saving features that were in the last update are a pain, to be quite frank. When you come to recording and working, it's a pain. Okay, so we're going to use our little pull it down off the internet button. Now remember, we haven't unloaded our mat. We can add an offset to our trace if we want to at this stage. So if you've forgotten and go, oh, damn it, I wanted to do an offset on that. Rather than having to go through and do it individual shape by individual shape, we can do it here, and it's going to apply to everything. That's also going to apply to your frame. Just bear that in mind. I'm going to go to cut and just let it go. Okay, so let me get the right button, would be good. Come on, overhead, thank you. So, with this setup, this still isn't the right screen. Bear with me one moment. I want you to zoom in and see it. There we go. So, we've done our cutting out. I've taken the waste off and around the outside. So now we have our kind of cut shape around here and all our little bits. Now again, we've got a lot of little bits of detail here, and I don't want to lose them. So I'm going to flick it over, peel it back from the corner. Now remember, the outside frame is the bit that we actually want to keep. There we go. And we can remove that off with a ink roller or credit card comes in handy. And we have our frame. So you'll notice that I did bits that upside down, but it doesn't matter as long as you know which way you're going. So we have our flower. We have our little cut sections. If I hold that up, you can see that we've got those going through here, and then we can actually colour our item should we want to. So what I will do is probably hop off the video now, do a little bit of colouring, and when I come back it's going to look all beautiful. Okay, so I've now coloured my frames. I've just used some real random mix of coloured pencils. So I've got a Pergamano white pencil that I've used to highlight my flower with. I've used Pro Colours for the leaves, which are quite a hard pencil, but they do lay down nicely. So they're really good for like picking out the mid-tone. So we'll call this the mid-tone here for this particular frame, and so I've used that to kind of do the shading in the white. So in nature, if it was in this blue space, it's going to reflect that blue back at you. So even in the leaves, you're going to see that there's bits of blue that I've left to kind of pop through and go, it's in that blue space. Just makes it look a little bit more natural. Okay. Then with this one, what I've done is just literally just use white pencil just to add some highlights. Nice, simple, doesn't even need that much blending, if any at all. And then with this one, I've put on some white highlights. Excuse me. But it wasn't really transferring to the paper. Sometimes it's just down to the paper. You know, paper is the most underrated thing when it comes to any art material. The wrong paper can make even the most expensive supply look rubbish. So sometimes it's just a case of finding the right paper, and sometimes it's a case of just working with it. So I worked with it and instead went to a light wash pencil. So this one's a HB. Considering it's light, it's actually not that light. So just do a bit of loose scribbling where you want to apply your shade, and then blend it with a water brush, or as I did in this case, a Wink of Stella, so that we get our Wink of Stella gives us that nice shimmery sparkle. Let's see if I can pick that up on camera. Maybe that I can't quite get. Oh, you could see it there. It just needs to focus a bit. Focus. There we go. You can see it's really subtle, but it looks a lot more sparkly in real life than that. But you get the hint. You can see that there's little bits of sparkle, but yeah, it's a lot more in real life. I do love Wink of Stella for that. So there you go. Let me know in the comments what you think. Is it something that you are going to be willing to try and see how you go? Or are you going to go for the other route and stamp your image and then subtract it from the circle and then do your frame around the outside? Love to see what you make with these techniques, and I look forward to seeing you at the end of May, the start of June. So between then and now, keep safe. If you get stuck, pop whatever problem you're having in Discord. And unfortunately, if I can't be there to help you, then one of our design team is going to be there to help you. And in the meantime, they are going to be keeping you company. So this is entirely off the cuff and off the top of my head. So if I get this wrong, it's my bad. But there will be a schedule going up with when you can expect to see people. So Brian is going to be doing a Cricut workshop. So he's going to be kind of filling in the gaps. So if you have a Cricut, you're going to be wanting to watch Brian. Hopefully by sort of mid-May, fingers crossed, hopefully Mary will have her ScanNCut. So she'll be able to show you some ScanNCut bits while I'm unfortunately otherwise engaged. And then we have some new D team members as well who have also come on board just in time to help us. So do keep an eye on our social media. So we have Janet and Kathy who are going to be not necessarily always doing videos. They're also going to be posting stuff onto Facebook. I'll try and share it onto our Instagram as well. It's a little bit more tricky to share the Instagram account, but yeah. Also, of course, everyone is in Discord, so do just tag them and chat away, and I will see everything in Discord. I may not necessarily be able to see Facebook, so if you do tag me on Facebook, I do apologise if I just don't see it. No doubt by the time I get back to Facebook, there's going to be like millions of notifications, and I apologise if I miss any. The best way to contact me if it is absolutely urgent, and Discord isn't doing it for you, then do drop me an email, if you know my email address. I don't really want to put it out in this video, but yeah, for reasons that some of you know, we are being cautious. So thank you so much for watching, and I can't wait to be back with you in June. It's just we've got a bump in the middle. Take care and be thinking of us, and we will be back to support you very, very, very soon. Take care. Bye.